majestically and kicks the goal. Making something out of nothing.
Malcheski, is that the grand final?
Jimmy Bartell can make a hero of himself.
That is a brilliant snap. He's kicked the goal and Freeman to win it after the siren. What a game of football at the MCG.
Welcome to the Protected Zone, where we talk about everything that relates to AFL and everything in this great game of Australian rules football. I'm Eddie J in Sydney, and my co-host in Malacca is
Linton, and I'm saying hello to everyone. I said to Eddie before, but I just experienced sort of what it's like for the teams from the West Coast Eagles and Fremantle. You know, you have to travel east, and what it's like. I'm suffering from a bit of jet lag. It's only an hour, but it's kind of strange. Body reacts funny. And this whole concept of trying to get to, traveling from west to get to the east, then you realize you're on the west coast of Malay Peninsula. That's where I am. So you're traveling, from the west to the east to get to the west. I do understand how confused and how badly they play when they travel.
Well, I'm very confused about what you've just said, but the east and the west and the east, it's a little bit confusing, but I get what you're saying. So have you come across any AFL supporters in Malacca?
Not so far, but certainly there are a lot of tourists here, so I'm not surprised bumping into fans of Carlton or Gold Coast Suns or Brisbane people walking around in Brisbane Lions t-shirt or something. But Malacca being a former colony of England, Malaysia being the former colony of Great Britain, I sort of half expecting to sort of stumble onto the cricket ground somewhere, but I haven't seen one yet, but I'll report back. I'll spend another couple of days here, so I might find the suitable grounds for our footy to be played in the future.
That's excellent news. Round 13, it was lucky for some, it was lucky for some of the AFL teams, and it was unlucky for other AFL teams. And I'm talking about the winners and the losers, but it was an absolutely fantastic round. It started off on the Thursday night with a game between West Coast and Geelong, and it was a cracker of a match.
Yes, I watched a bit of that game, and it was I was watching the game with a keen interest how the Cats go, because we know how strong the team is when they play Geelong, but they are not as sort of formidable when they are outside of their home. And West Coast Eagles the same. When they play at home, they play brilliant, but when they're playing in the East Coast, they're not so brilliant or terrible. As we expected, West Coast came out winning, but it's a sort of house rules, They're homeboys, aren't they?
Yes, they certainly are, and we did predict that the West Coast Eagles were going to win this game, but we suspected that it might suit Geelong because they play on a similar ground at Cardinia Park, similar ground to Subiaco Oval. But there was one interesting statistic that came out of this, and that's Geelong losing their 7th game in a row playing after a bye.
That's a worrying sign, isn't it? And maybe, next time they should just keep on playing it, or wherever it is, against whoever it is. They seem to be losing touch, and oddly, they seem to be running out of sort of power towards the end, running out of gas.
Yes, they did run out of gas, and I think playing AFL football is based on the cycle of playing a game every single week, and it doesn't seem to make sense that if you play every single week and then have a week off that you should lose a game after that. But I think it's just that once you get into the rhythm of playing a game every single week and then you lose that rhythm, well, that affects your stamina. And I think that's what happened to Geelong in this game. They ran out of puff at the end of the game and they ended up losing the game.
Yes, certainly during the game they lost 2 players, Cockatoo and Scott Selwood, from injuries, but that sort of cost them a bit. But generally speaking, yes, 7 in a row. They have to do something about it, and I strongly suggest they should play. University league or kindergarten league or whatever, wherever they can play, wherever they can find the ground. I think they should play the game, or they should ask the league to scrap this stupid idea of having a bye.
I could not agree with you anymore. That's what I'd suggest also, scrapping the bye.
One more to finish the job, and it's Gary Rowan, and he's right foot in their rabbit, the Swans.
So the climb is on. But with just 3 seconds remaining, there it is. Sydney have come from behind and have snatched a thrilling victory.
There was also another fantastic game on the weekend as well, and for me it was the best game of the round, and that's the Richmond against Sydney game played at the MCG.
Yes, whole year we've been asking questions, is Richmond real deal? And we just can't keep asking, because Richmond poses that question week after week. And this week was no different. Richmond started strongly. And, everyone thought, wow, Richmond finally, answers the question. Yes, we are the real deal, only to fall a bit short. Swans were not perfect. Swans were terrible, in fact, in the first half. But they just chiseled back. And in the final quarter, they just ran away.
Yes, they did. And it was a very tough match. It was high pressure. The Richmond defender, Alex Rance, I would say that he probably played the best game ever in a losing team. He was part fullback, he was part goalkeeper, he was part brick wall. He was just everywhere, it seemed.
I think it's partly because he was on Lance Franklin, and he just went everywhere, and so he was everywhere.
Yes, he was. And at half time, Sydney was roughly 5 or 6 goals down. The Sydney defender, Nick Smith, after the game, he said that they decided as a team that they couldn't wait for the midweek review of the game. That would have been too late, so they decided to do it at the half-time break when they were 6 goals down. They won the game. How is it possible to review a game at half-time when you're 6 goals down and turn it all around?
It's a weird concept to review the game in the middle of the game and still in the game, and they reviewed it, and I have no idea how it works, but it obviously worked. Maybe that's what Collingwood did a few weeks back when they were playing against Hawthorn. They were so many goals down, but they came back winning. And there's something there, teams leading a match with a certain sort of margins, and in the second half, they come back and win. Maybe every team may be doing that, sort of doing the midweek review of the game before the game is over, so that they can review it better, or something like that.
Yes, they probably do it on hyperdrive or hyperspeed instead of having the midweek review after the game, and that's all well and good to review the game after the game, but if you do it at the half-time break, you have to do it very, very quickly. There's not enough time to ponder or think about what you've done or how you could improve. You just got to do it so quickly. Obviously, it's working for some teams. So I suggest that the mid-game review, not the midweek review after the game, but the mid-game review during the game is the way to go.
But how can you have a review before the game is over? That's a sort of very philosophical question. You are looking from the future, the past, but you are still in it.
Yes, I think there's a bit of logical positivism there as far as a philosophical outlook is concerned, but teams are doing it. Sydney did it on the weekend. Collingwood did it a few weeks ago. I think it is the way of the future. I'm all for it.
Yeah, one last question. Is Richmond the real deal?
I think Richmond is the real deal this year. They're about 95% complete of a full-on team, and they just need a bit of cementing or plastering over the cracks. They're not as disastrous as the team of 2016, where they just fell into a huge heap. I think they're actually a very good team. The only bad match that they've had this year was against Adelaide, where they lost by 76 points in Adelaide. But every other match, they've been in it until the final siren. Even though they might have lost some of the games after the siren or lost a few games by a couple of points, they've been in it. They just need to work out a way of getting over the line in those very tight matches. But as far as I can see, they're the real deal this year.
But we discussed this concept of honourable loss, and North Melbourne was in a sort of constant habit of having an honourable loss, and now they're hitting the bottom sort of. I mean, having a sort of habit of losing by a small margin. Once it becomes a habit, and everyone thinks they're thereabouts, it must be a very, very sort of skill involved to go over that line, final line. Hang on to that slim majority, slim lead. That is a real test, real skill. And if you don't have that, yes, as you said, they're 95% there, but last 5% makes win or lose. And that's whether you end up 0 point or 4 points.
AFL is a game of inches and centimetres and maybe even millimetres in some cases, but 95% sounds pretty good, but they need to get to 100%. And you're right. Once it becomes a habit of the honourable loss or losing these close games, that's not good enough. You need to claim the win at all opportunities. And you did mention that North Melbourne, they started off the season with honourable losses, but the game that they played last week against St Kilda, I think that was a dishonourable loss. It was very poor.
What happened to North, or what did not happen to North? Early in the season, we were saying, yes, they're brave. They're, if not 95%, they're sort of around 85, 90%. And, if they make a bit more effort, they could have won few more games. But now they're playing terrible footy.
Yes, they are playing terrible football. And you did mention last week that someone spotted them on their way to North Korea. I'm not actually sure if they did go to North Korea or not, but if they did go there, maybe they had too much of a good time over there, and maybe they're thinking too much about their holidays rather than thinking about the game of AFL. And they did start off the season with a number of honourable losses, but those honourable losses have gone, and now they're starting to get into the habit of playing the dishonourable loss, as I mentioned before.
Yeah, North has completely gone south. So, maybe they have gone to a wrong Korea, like South Korea instead of North Korea. And that's why they have gone south.
That could be the case. Now, we are harping on about North Melbourne quite a lot as far as their honourable losses now becoming dishonourable losses, but St Kilda were not much better. They ended up winning the game, sure, we'll accept that, but they played terribly as well. How is it possible that both teams can play terribly and there can still be a winner?
Yeah, that's the, real life philosophy, isn't it? There's only loser and winner unless you have a tie. And St Kilda in this instance, yes, they came out winning, but they were not convincing at all. And both teams, we can safely say that they're out of September action unless we are talking about September 2018. Their seasons are over.
Yes, I agree with you. And I think it was a case where winning in this particular game, because it was a terrible game, but winning in this game was considered to be the least worst option of both teams. So it was a very poor game. Hopefully we won't see any more games like that. But I think that North Melbourne, St Kilda, they're gone for this year. So some of our talking points for this week, we'll look at the first one. Nick Maxwell, who was a champion player for Collingwood, he's now the runner for Greater Western Sydney. And he's been accused of interfering with players or coaching players. Now, I'm not sure what they mean by interfering. I guess that means he's getting in the way or standing in the way of opposition players.
I think he was sort of de facto 19th man, blocking the hole so that to confuse the opposition players. There's someone there, we can't kick there. And he was accused of, standing in the sort of hole left behind the 18 players. But what are the runners' role, Eddie? Can you explain that to me?
Yes, the runner's role is to take messages from the coaching bench or directly from the coach and run it out to a particular player. And occasionally they take out water supplies to the players as well. So that's their main role. But my feeling is that they're starting to become more like players, where they're bringing out the instructions as well, but they're standing in strategic parts of the ground to confuse their opponents.
So you're saying that Nick Maxwell was acting as a 19th man?
I think he was acting like a 19th man, and I'm thinking that in this day and age, do we really need runners in AFL football? Can you imagine having runners in soccer or rugby or cricket or billiards or darts? It just doesn't seem quite right. And it seems to me like a little bit of a quaint old tradition of yesteryear, just like players wearing caps in the 1900s. I think it should go.
Yeah, but runners, don't they have runners or something sort of alongside in the golf?
Yes, but golf is a completely different game to AFL. I think that runners should be removed. The players can get their instructions on the interchange bench when they come off for a bit of a spell, or at quarter time, or at half time, or at three-quarter time. Yes, well, umpires were in the spotlight over the weekend as well, and especially in the Richmond-Sydney game, where the umpiring was quite appalling. In that game and in other games during the bye round, there were 4 umpires on the field. Do you think that's too many?
I think so. Sometimes they look a bit hesitant, which ones to call and which one not to call. And the other times, sometimes, I have to make a call, otherwise, no one recognises that I'm on the field. So there sometimes some decisions looked so technical. Sometimes they were wrong, and I think if we go back to just simple 2 and pressures on 2 umpires, and they have to do whatever they can, not relying. I mean, if you have more than 3, 4. It's a human psychology that, I saw it, but someone else should call it. Oh, no, I didn't see it. Oh, shit, I have to make an appearance now. That sort of unnecessary things creeping into your head. But if there are only 2 umpires, okay, it's my responsibility. I'll do my best.
Well, we had the unusual situation of umpire number 4, who might have been 200 metres away from the action, awarding a free kick when the umpire, who was just centimetres away from all the action, saw nothing. So it's quite a strange situation, but I agree with you that we should probably go back to 2 umpires on the field, or maybe replicate one of the few good things from soccer and just have 1 umpire on the ground. Why not?
Well, we go to the whole hog. A few weeks back, we suggested maybe they should have, 18 umpires on the field. And just like, tagging players, umpires should, go with the 1 player or, 2 players all the time and just keep calling. So, it's either all the way, 18 umpires, or back to 1 or 2.
I think it made the ground too congested. There's too many people on the ground already. If you've got too many people, too many players, too many umpires, too many runners, it's almost like a carnival out on the ground. And I think there's too many people on the ground. I think 18 players, no runners, and 1 umpire. Yeah,
that sounds like a good idea. And as you said, carnivals and players should lose concentration. There are so many fluoro pinks running around, fluoro yellows, and on top of opposition teams, and then too much.
Our regular listeners to the AFL Protected Zone would realise that each week we provide a team with a new team song. And which one shall we look at this week?
I keep hearing this team song for the, first time in a long, long time. That is a Carlton. For last 4 or 5 years, if not longer, I hardly hear their team songs because they keep losing. And I forgot that they had a song. For those listeners who aren't familiar with the Carlton team song, here it is.
Send up, we'll keep our end up, and they will know that they've been playing against the famous old dark blues.
And there we have it. There's the Carlton team song, and yes, we did hear it for 2 weeks in a row. Now, the history of this is that it's actually the Lily of Laguna, and it's a love song that originally included a racist and stereotyped image of black people. So it started off as a racist song back in 1898. It's written by an English composer called Leslie Stewart. Now, the AFL doesn't want racism in the Great Game, and we don't want to have any racism within the Great Game either. So the Carlton team song is based on the Lily of Laguna, which started off as a racist song. So what can we do about this?
We're going to give them a new song, even though not many people like Carlton.
Yes, they are Carlton. The racist elements of the song were removed in the 1930s. Carlton have won a few premierships since that time, so it's good that they've changed the lyrics of the song, but it's got a bad history, this song. I think they're due for a new song, and we'll reveal what that new song is at the end of the program. Round 14. Now we're getting the full round, not 6 games or 4 games or 7 games or 8 games, but that we're getting the full complement of 9 games. Are you quite happy about this?
Oh yes, full strength beer always tastes better than low carb, low alcohol, kiddie beer. A full strength any day.
Yes, it's good to have the full round of 9 back, and as we mentioned, for 3 weeks in a row, we felt quite shortchanged, but not this weekend. Round 14, 9 games. There's lots of things happening, and one match that I've noticed is that it's the Magpies against the Magpies. What's going on there?
Which Magpies is older? I mean, one variety claims to be the foundation member, while the other is claiming to be the oldest club in the entire continent. No, maybe not. Melbourne is the oldest club in the continent, but it's a sort of battle of the Magpies of equally, weighted history, and of course here we're talking about the team known as Port Adelaide Power in the AFL circle, but at home in South Australia, they're known as Port Adelaide Magpies. And they had huge success in their state leagues over the years, don't they?
Yes, they did. They actually started off in 1874, did Port Adelaide, and they were known as the Magpies then. But then when they entered the AFL competition in 1997, well, you can't have 2 Magpies teams because Collingwood were already known as the Magpies and they were in the AFL since 1897. Port Adelaide had to choose a different name and different colours, so they became known as the Port Power. So it's a big match. It's the Magpies, Collingwood, against the Port Adelaide Power. So what do you think will happen in this one? It's a season-defining game for both teams.
Yes, Collingwood was thereabout. They had one of the honourable losses week before the bye against Melbourne. They got close but not quite enough. And they're sitting on the 13th at the moment with 5 wins, which is only a game outside top 8. So they still have got the chance. But the sort of trend I'm following, the way Port Adelaide has been playing for at least last 6-8 weeks, is that their win is always followed by the loss. And judging from the way they won last week, I think they might go down against Magpies A, that is Collingwood, this weekend.
Yes, well, several weeks ago you did develop that very special formula for Port Adelaide, which is win, loss, win, loss, win, loss. And it sounds like a very simple formula, but you actually spent quite a lot of time researching that. So based on what your research suggests, I'd say that Collingwood will win this match.
Yes, and for the Port fans or Magpie B side, if they keep this win-loss consistent inconsistency, they could win the flag if the win comes after loss and loss follows win. Yeah, they've got a very good chance if they keep on this inconsistent consistency or consistent inconsistency.
The other big match of the weekend is Richmond against Carlton. These are fierce traditional rivals, and we talked about Richmond being the real deal. I think that Carlton might be the real deal as well.
Yes, they won their 2 games in a row, and the way they won those 2 games were quite impressive. I think they might do well. And the Richmond, even though they're currently sitting at number 6, a very good chance of making it to top 4. They have already won 7 games, so they need another sort of 5 games probably to be qualified in top 8, and I'm afraid this game Carlton's going to notch up a 3rd win in a row. What do you reckon, Neddy?
Well, this season has been a very unusual season where the team that you think will win ends up losing and the team that you think will lose ends up winning. So I'm going to be very strategic in this. I think that Richmond are going to win, so therefore I'm going to tip Carlton to win.
That's it. The other formula I found out is always tip the lower side, and then you'll be in the winner's cycle.
Essendon against Sydney. That's another match that we should be looking at as well. It's being played on Friday night, and it's the rematch of the 1912 Grand Final that was won by Essendon.
Essendon's currently in top 8, while Sydney on the 12th, but a fairly good percentage. They're better than their percentage is better than West Coast and Essendon, who are currently number 7 and 8. And a simpler formula suggests that Swans will beat Essendon because Sydney Swans are lower at the moment until next week when it's a classic 8-pointer. And if the Swans win, Essendon will go down, so Essendon will maximise their chance next week. So that kind of roller coaster, a consistently inconsistent season, or you put it, it's odd year where everything is even.
Yes, well, I like these 8-point games, and for the audience members that don't understand what an 8-point game is, it just means that for each game that you win in AFL, you receive 4 points. And if you've got 2 teams that are even on the ladder or close or thereabouts, it means that what you're doing is denying your opponent 4 points as well as winning the 4 points yourself. So it just means that you're putting an 8-point gap between yourselves. So that's why it's called an 8-point game. And the Essendon-Sydney game is a classic 8-point game. And I actually think Essendon will win this game. And because that's what I'm thinking, I'm going to tip Sydney to win, if that makes any sense.
Oh, yes, I think, Eddie, you're working out your new formula. Now, formula versus formula, whose formula wins? But then again, we are tipping the same team, so we can only win or lose.
Let's look at some of the other games that are being played on the weekend, and we'll just get some quick tips for these ones. Adelaide against Hawthorn. Several years ago, this would have been the match of the round, but not this time around because Hawthorn's down the bottom of the ladder.
Yes, in this odd year of evenness, Hawthorn still has got the chance, and Adelaide might lose another game. But it's hard to tip for Hawthorn this year. The way they're playing, body language, and Eddie, last week or a couple of weeks ago, you mentioned that they took the mask off and their real face looks quite ugly.
Yes, and for that reason, it's hard to tip Hawthorn at this stage. I think that Hawthorn will win this match.
Oh, you go for Hawthorn, and according to my formula, tip the lower side. Yes, Hawthorn.
Brisbane against Greater Western Sydney. What can we expect to see in this one? It's being played up in Brisbane. Brisbane has been a little bit of a surprise packet over the past couple of weeks. They thrashed Fremantle. They put in a good performance against Port Adelaide last weekend. What can we expect to see against the Greater Western Sydney?
And on the other hand, GWS Giants sort of won a few games, but they're on a sort of, probably borrowed time, so to speak. They're suffering from a few injuries to a few players. There are a few players down. Last week, it finally came down to the earth. Their injury is taking toll now. And I think Brisbane has got quite a good chance.
I'm actually tipping Brisbane for this one.
So you're going for the GWS?
I'm confused. I'll go for one of the teams. Western against North Melbourne. Western Bulldogs are having a bit of a terrible year, and North Melbourne are having an even more terrible year. So it's a hard one to predict here. I think that Western Bulldogs are a better team. North Melbourne can do some unusual things and unpredictable things, such as when they kicked 10 goals to naught against Adelaide a few weeks ago. What do you think might happen?
Well, it could be a stormy game, and the result is one of them is losing honourable loss.
I think the Western Bulldogs should come back into form for this one. I think they'll win this game.
They should.
West Coast against the Demons. Now, the Demons are not yet out of Ramadan.
Oh, well, Ramadan ends on Sunday, and they celebrate with this thing called the Lebaran, where it's like sort of Christmas in Australia or New Year's time in Japan, where family members go back to their original homes and get together and celebrate the end of Ramadan, which is the beginning of 10th month. Ramadan is the name of the 9th month, and 9th month is finally over, and they celebrate in fashion. And all the demons are supposed to come out on Sunday. Now, what time of the day the game is going to be played? Eddie, do you know? Melbourne versus West Coast.
Well, it's actually being played on the Saturday, so it's a day early, so the Demons are still going to be locked up. But who knows, the AFL Demons might come out to play. I'm actually predicting the Demons will win this game because they just played so well on the weekend against Western Bulldogs. So they're playing another team against the West. I think they'll follow it up with another win against the West.
Right, but they're playing in the House of Pain, don't they?
Yes, they are playing at the House of Pain, but I think that Melbourne is just playing so well at the moment that they'll notch up a victory at Subiaco Oval.
Oh, I'll go against that. I think West Coast needs to, save up wins at home so that they can waste their savings on the road. So I think West Coast will come out winning this one.
Geelong against Fremantle on Sunday. They're playing this game at their home, Cardinia Park, and since the renovated oval was launched a few months ago, Geelong have not lost a game at Cardinia Park. Has it got anything to do with the way that the stadium has been built, or the stands, or have they changed the shape of the ground? What do you think it might be?
I think they built the new stadium to fit the way cats are playing. Like they do in cricket. They temper the pitch to suit the home team and stuff. I think they have done something to make Geelong playing their kind of football so much better, or they might have something in the grandstand to encourage Cats players to perform better, or something to intimidate the opposition players. Maybe they have a sort of really shitty locker room or something in away for the away side. I don't know, something weird.
Or they might have cold showers for the opposition players, something like that. But that's something that you only worry about after the game. I did have my formula built before of choosing the team that you don't think is going to win, but I can't see Fremantle winning this game at all. So I'm tipping Geelong.
I'm all for Geelong at home.
And the final game that we're looking at is St Kilda against Gold Coast. And it's being played at 4:40 on a Sunday evening. I'm not sure how many people will be watching this game, but what can we expect to see from this game?
Well, it is another sort of 8-pointers, St Kilda is sitting at 10th and Gold Coast at 14th, but only a game between them. And a win for Gold Coast means, they go up the ladder in uncharted territory, while St Kilda, the way they are playing, not much point hanging around there, so they might as well, not necessarily tanking, but they just have to, one way or the other, they have to make up the decision. If they want some action in September, they have to play better football, while Gold Coast simply playing much better attitude. So I'll go for the Suns.
Using the formula that I've strategically developed, St Kilda for me are the winning team. They are the team that should win, but because of that, I'm going to tip Gold Coast. So, Lin Tang, there's a special announcement that you'd like to make.
Oh yes, another game played on Sunday, June the 25th in Melbourne is Rockland Community Cup. Have you been to any of them, Eddie?
No, I haven't. Tell me more about it.
Well, it's the game, a footy game between the team made up with the musicians and the other team made up with the community FM stations broadcasters. And they're called Rock Dogs for the musos and Megahertz. They're the jocks from PBS and the Triple R. And I took part, well, sort of. I was on the field wearing the Rock Dogs jumper a few years back, and it was such fun.
Well, that sounds fantastic, the Community Cup. So put on your jumper and get on down there. So you've been listening to the AFL Protected Zone. We talk about everything that relates to football, all the interesting things, all the uninteresting things, umpires, haircuts, colours, absolutely everything. I'm Eddie J, and over in Malacca,
it's Linton and Arm. Just as the sun's setting, which way is the west? Which way is Mecca? I don't know. I thought I travelled east. I'm so confused. But I think I'll be back in west next week. It's Linton and I'm signing off for the AFL Protected Zone. See you next week.
And the West is best, and we're going out with the new Carlton team song.
See ya.